Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare. We're in for a big adventure this Thanksgiving holiday. Adventure for all of you and adventure for me as well. I say adventure because I've spoken on this topic several times, and each time I speak on this topic, it gets more and more exciting and adventure filled, and enormous appreciation for the gift that our founder Acharya had to give the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam to the world. So on this illustration, on the right-hand side is one of the various cover illustrations for Light of the Bhagavat. And the purpose of this evening class is just to give a little background, like how it came into being, because it's a very nice adventure-filled description, the life of Srila Prabhupada. His journey leading to creating Light of the Bhagavat. As we all know, so much of this is drawn from Lilamrita and other related sources, Prabhupada's life. Prabhupada was a householder. He had a wife and children. He had an occupation. He had upbringing from a very elevated Vaishnava father. And so he was trained from childhood in Vaishnava practices and etc., etc. And in his marriage, he found his wife was not as immersed in Krishna bhakti as he was, or rather the other direction. She was kind of not opposed, but not inclined at all. So he tried as a responsible householder to hope his family would gradually follow. They went together to Ahmedabad from Calcutta, posed for this family portrait. In the center, the very short statured person is his father, Gaur Mohan. And to Gaur Mohan's right, or to our left, that's Srila Prabhupada with the two children. Behind him, behind his shoulder, is his wife. And seated next to his father is his widowed sister and two others in the photograph. So his father certainly was encouraging everyone. Prabhupada was encouraging particularly his wife, but somehow in 1954, at the age of 59, Srila Prabhupada left his family life. When he left his family life, the two sons shown in this picture were grown up and they were able to maintain the family business. So he didn't just abandon his wife or children. The family business was turned over to them. They could maintain her and themselves quite nicely. But the breaking point, because during this time, copies of Srimad Bhagavatam were not like going online, bbt.com, click, here's my my credit card information, click, here's my address, click, and they'll send you a Srimad Bhagavatam set. It wasn't like that. It was very difficult to secure. And he had. And his wife, almost in defiance or to snub her husband, she sold or traded the Srimad Bhagavatam set for tea biscuits. I don't know what a tea biscuit is, but she did. And so that was it. He left the business with his sons, left his wife. And although it was sad departure, he was very firm in his resolve, and he wanted to just leave. And so when he got on a train heading to Calcutta, he didn't know exactly where he was going. According to his explanation, he ended up at an ashram not far, just south of Calcutta, in a place called Jarjgram. And when he left, so let's take a look at the date again. 1954. 1954 is when he entered the Vanaprastha ashram. And then things started to happen. And when he stayed in this ashram, he didn't know exactly where he would turn, but he had a mandate from his spiritual master, which was his life and soul. The mandate from his spiritual master was, twice given, to take the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and deliver them personally to the English-speaking parts of the world. You know, India at that time had just completed being under British rule. English was well known in the world, even at that time, and speaking the message, main idea was outside of the four walls of India and the English-speaking parts of the world. That was his target. That's a big target. How to do that? Because at this stage, whatever financial resource he had was with his children and wife. You know, purposefully, he didn't take anything with him. He didn't take anything with him. So what to do? He's got this big mission and no resource. He's a householder now entering Vanaprastha stage. And there was a big struggle for a number of years. Well, you know, read Lilamrita if you want to know the details. This isn't a class for giving those details of the hardships that Prabhupada endured. From place to place he went, and one of the places he went was Jhansi. And in Jhansi, he met two ladies that owned a property. The property was called Bharati Bhavan, and they called the property Radha Memorial. And these two ladies became very impressed with Srila Prabhupada, and they offered to give him their property. They were older ladies, and they saw sincerity and capacity, etc., in Srila Prabhupada, and so it's a long story. And Prabhupada, took that opportunity as an opportunity to fulfill the vision of his Guru Maharaj. He officially, in India, established a legal entity. Here we would say incorporated. I don't know what it's called in India, but he established the League of Devotees that, like he did when he came to America, had a statement of purpose, and they're not identical with, but very similar to the purposes of ISKCON. So he had a vision, even shortly after entering Vanaprastha stage. Then he wanted to go here and there. So you see the big 6-foot tall letters on the outside of the boundary wall, the League of Devotees. However, That's not what Krishna wanted. And a couple of problems came, like life has problems. And one of those problems was there were other persons interested in the property, and they started wooing the ladies. And then the ladies got tricky. The gift was a conditional gift, this and that and the other thing. Something like if he didn't complete construction by such and such date, then he would lose the property. So he understood what was going on, and he walked away. You know, not happy, but not discouraged. There are many reversals in life. So in 1955, just remember the timing of things here. 3 years later, he just traveled for about a year from place to place, staying in different ashrams. He had no home. He had no resource. He's got a mission on behalf of his Guru Maharaj. And one of the things that happened, there's many things that happened, but one of those things that happened was because he was a literary person. Thank you. Because he was a literary person, these two individuals that you see on the screen here, Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Maharaj lived in Mathura, and he was entrusted by Bhakti Siddhanta to take care of the printing of the Gaudiya Patrika. And another of Bhakti Siddhanta's disciples, another sannyasi, Bhakti Saranga Maharaj, in Delhi he was in charge of the Harmonist, which is the English version of Sajjana Toshini, was a Hindi publication. So they both knew that Srila Prabhupada was very gifted in writing, and they both sent him invitations to come and help them. So he gave some help to both. When he went to stay in Delhi, he was invited to stay in the ashram, and he found it was a very unpleasant situation. The unpleasant situation included unclean, quarreling amongst the brahmacharis who lived in the ashram, not properly performing their duties, and so there was always being underfunded. He didn't have a place to do his work. He didn't have a typewriter, and there was an editor who was mucking around with Prabhupada's writings. There was difficulty with the printer. They had a bad relationship with the printer because they weren't timely in their payments, and it wasn't a very inviting situation. So he didn't stay in that Gaudiya Math ashram for too long, but he remained in Delhi with the work of starting or restarting his own publication, Back to Godhead magazine, that was a fortnightly publication. And his idea, because he had a broader vision, the broader vision was go to the English-speaking parts of the world. And so he was using the magazine to go introduce his writing skill to people and explain his mission and find persons who might in the future be able to help sponsor him to get his fare to travel, get his visa and passport, because he didn't have either, to go to the English-speaking parts of the world, wherever. And he decided America is best because, in his vision, America was most respected at that time in the world, and if shoot for the rhinoceros kind of idea. If he could break through in America, then others would follow. So he stayed for a year, the cold and the heat in Delhi. Here's taken just directly from Lilamrita. Abai was trying to print Back to Godhead. In winter's discomfort, he walked through the early morning streets of Delhi to visit Surendra Kumar Jain, the printer, to read the latest proofs. By walking, he saved money. He had no chadar, only a lightweight cotton jacket, and he wore rubber shoes. He also wore a cotton hat that covered his ears and tied beneath his chin, protecting him from the 40-degree, that's not Celsius, that's Fahrenheit, 40-degree wintry mornings and the sometimes gusty winds. So that's winter, and then summer came. 110-degree heat made it almost intolerable to spend time out of doors. Hot, dust-laden winds blew in the city streets. Street-side hawkers closed their businesses during the day. In early May, during 112-degree heat, a man collapsed in the street and died of heat stroke. But Abai ignored the heat and the ordinary limitations of the body. So this was a difficult year. There's many other things without, you can read the Lamrita to understand the tribulations he underwent for that year, 1955. Later in conversation, Prabhupada said it was the most difficult patch of my life. Many, many, many difficulties. He then decided in 1956 that he wanted to go stay in Vrindavan. So he made an arrangement with a family that had a house. No, wealthy families, we read in Lilamrita, 5,000, Prabhupada would say, 5,000 temples. 5,000, that's a lot of temples. So some of the temples were literally just a wealthy family's house, and in their house they have a deity. And this was one of those. So a wealthy family, ancestral home, and the deity at that home was Bangsi Gopal. And the location, I'll show you on a map shortly, is near Keshigat. So Prabhupada stayed in this little teeny room for 6 years. And here's the front entrance. And over on this side is what's on the other side of that entryway. There's a courtyard, a tulsi plant. You see on the back left side of the photograph, that's the temple. And they had a little cow. And in the courtyard, for milking the cow, there's a little calf over on the other side. And here's Vangshi Gopal, Radha Vangshi Gopal. So some of you may someday visit Vrindavan, and if you get a chance to visit this little cute place, it's a very small place, not cute, but small. And you see the deity isn't holding his flute. And that's because the photograph was taken when an offering was being made, and when you make an offering to Krishna, you take the flute and many other things. So that's the circumstance why he's not holding his flute. Vangshi Gopal. Here's the steps leading up to his room, because he didn't live on the ground floor. He lived on the second floor, or in India it would be the first floor, and 28 steep steps. So remember, he's 59, 60, 61 years of age, going up and down these steps every day. And his room, this is where he stayed for 6 years. The room, 17 feet by 9 feet. And look closely, there's windows, but there's no running water, there's no toilet, there's no kitchen, it's bare walls. It wasn't well kept either. And that's where he stayed. He did his cooking at a little kerosene stove. He took the cooking downstairs and offered to the deity. If he had to use the toilet, he used the family toilet downstairs. He took a shower outdoors in all seasons for 6 years. Very austere. And if you look closely on the right side, you see some wooden doors. The wooden doors led to a balcony or terrace. And if you look closely at the terrace, you see the winding way of the river Jamuna. Because Keshi Ghat is right by the side of River Jamuna, and this place is very close to Keshi Ghat. And from the second floor, there you see the River Jamuna. On the right side, looking out those windows, is where you can see the entryway into the home or the temple. Here's a map that shows basically where the Vangsi Gopal Mandir is. It's not well marked, but the location of Keshi Ghat is also depicted here, and the River Jamuna and so forth. So there he is, living in Vrindavan for those 6 years, where he made it his base, but he continued to travel during this period of time, because he has a mission, and the mission was using his magazine and other publications, little small publications, to meet people, preach Krishna consciousness, take subscribers for his Bhakti Guided magazine, and gradually I try to identify by following threads of friends of friends of friends, persons who could assist him in his mission. However, there looked like there were opportunities. I could describe some of them, but you can read in Lilamrita. And each one of the opportunities, although they looked possible, they didn't exactly pan out. So he moved there in 1956, and as you know, Vrindavan is not far from Mathura, so he continued to assist Bhakti Pragya Keshava Maharaj in his publication work. And Bhakti Pragya Keshava Maharaj understood very clearly that Bhakti Siddhanta, their Guru Maharaj, had given this mandate to Prabhupada, and he wanted him to do that mandate successfully, and he persuaded him, and insisted that although he had no money, no followers, no assistants, he had to achieve that mission, and so he persuaded him to take sannyas. And Prabhupada said, practically my Guru Maharaj ordered me in a dream. And so he's still living in Vangsi Gopal Temple, but while staying there, he, in 1962, shifted from Vangsi Gopal Temple to the Radha Damodar Temple. Some of you, I could go back and show you, but where Prabhupada was staying was not far from the Radha Raman Temple. And at the Radha Raman Temple was the chief amongst the Goswamis of the temples, the main temples of Vrindavan, named Vishwambar Goswami. Very dear friend of Srila Prabhupada. Vishwambar Goswami had a friendship with the Goswami at the Radha Damodar temple, whose name was Gaurachand. And Vishwambar knocked on that door, that is, requested Gaurachand invite Bhaktivedanta to stay. You have 2 rooms on the ground floor, they're not occupied. Invite him to stay there. So he did. And that was a year before Prabhupada looked at the rooms. They were in bad repair. He had to invest some funds, which he didn't have, to make them habitable. So without all the details, after making those repairs, he moved in to 2 empty rooms. And many of you have been to Vrindavan, and you've seen those 2 rooms. One side is where he did his work and had a cot, and on the left side is where he did his cooking. And as you see on the bottom right side, he would take his prasad. And on the upper one, just above that, is the little room where he would sit and do his writing. So starting in 1962, and then up to 65. Interesting is a detail, but Prabhupada had a written agreement with Gaurachand that said forever, like beyond his lifetime, he would have those 2 rooms for some very nominal amount because they were a wreck. And today, Vrindavan is not Vrindavan 1962. The place was unclean. The place was neglected. Now it's a hub of activity, but it wasn't like that at that time. On the lower left, you see Srila Prabhupada with his first group of American or Western disciples who took them on Prikrama in Vrindavan and gave lectures at the Radha Damodar temple in the backside to those devotees. He spoke on nectar devotion as a wonderful recorded series. And the one in the upper left, that's more recent and painted nicely where the main temple is, where the deities are. So that's the courtyard of the Radha Damodar temple. And Prabhupada's purpose was still focused to go to the West and deliver the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's very simple. The teachings of Lord Chaitanya are the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he purposefully wanted to make Srimad Bhagavatam available to the English-speaking people of the world because that's the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. They're identical. So starting from 59 through 65, which is when he left for America by boat, he had a vision minimally before leaving to have the first canto Bhagavatam. Here's a nice quote directly from the Lamrita. That was his real purpose in coming here, to prepare the books he could distribute to the people of the West. Although as yet he had no means for travel, even as far as Japan. Japan has to do with the length of the Bhagavad book. And no means for printing books. These were the goals for which he worked. He had not come to Vrindavan to die and return to Godhead. Rather, he had come because it was an ideal place to gain spiritual strength for his main life's work. Now, there's details and details showing what tribulation he underwent, how determined, how focused, how powerful he was. No matter what happened, he was focused. One of the reasons for being at the Radha Damodar temple, besides Radha Damodar, is the samadhi of Rupa Goswami. There's a very nice description. Prabhupada said on one occasion that Rupa Goswami came to him in a vision and encouraged him, please go forward. Imagine having a Rupa Goswami coming to pay you a visit. So he's beginning in 1959 in purports, translation and purports of Bhagavatam. We heard he also was publishing Back to Godhead magazine because it was the main way to introduce things to people. In 1960, because it was the big explosion of space travel, so he took the opportunity of a current event to write this. This was his first published book, Easy Journey to Other Planets. But his vision was to take with him first canto Bhagavatam, which was again and again and again. There's so many details of Prabhupada was just a strict follower of Bhaktisiddhanta. So when Bhaktisiddhanta wanted to send his disciples to England, it was delayed and delayed and delayed because you see on the right side is Nishikant Sanyal, a professor at Ravenshaw College in Cuttack. He was waiting for him to complete this magnificent book, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, because he wanted the persons going to England to carry this literature that was this explaining who is Lord Chaitanya and his teachings to the people of England. So the two went together, the person and the book. So when you read Chaitanya Srimad Bhagavatam, please note the beginning part is the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And there's a reason. He's a follower of Bhaktisiddhanta. And so that was his purpose in compiling Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as for the rest of the whole Bhagavatam, but it was just following Bhaktisiddhanta. And his procedure was very austere. According to Lilamrita, at 1 a.m., that's when he woke up. And when no one was up, he didn't have electricity, he didn't have heater, he didn't have an AC, he didn't have anything. He just, with lantern, he began his work. And he started in 1959, and the first volume of the first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, was published in 1962. Again, he didn't have money, but he had a friendship with Surendra Kumar Jain, and he continued working with him. Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. So that's a little chronology leading up to, but the year before 1962 was 1961. And during one of his visits from Vrindavan to Delhi, he happened to meet a gentleman who showed Prabhupada a pamphlet that was an invitation to attend an event. The event called Congress for the Cultivation of Human Spirit, which could mean anything, right? Congress for the Cultivation of Human Spirit. Now, during this particular period of time, it's after World War II, and during World War II and shortly thereafter, doors were locked. People weren't trusting other people. Countries weren't trusting other countries. There wasn't a lot of international travel. But the pendulum had started to swing the other direction, and some forward-thinking people began thinking, wouldn't it be nice if there could be some unity instead of division and mistrust? And so this inspired group headed by a certain person, they conceived of having an international conference, and they gave it a nice name. And they sent out invitations to attend. So a gentleman that Prabhupada met, had an acquaintance with, showed him this pamphlet. And Srila Prabhupada began to consider, well, Bhaktisiddhanta asked me to go to the English-speaking parts of the world, and Japan isn't English-speaking, it's Japanese-speaking, but I'm not getting an opportunity to go other places, and so one of the main wishes was to go outside of the four walls of India and give this message to the world. So he saw this as an opportunity. I mean, he was accustomed to taking far-reaching opportunities and knock on those doors. And so what he decided to do, this was January 1961, for an event that was to take place in May 1961. And so he wrote a letter to the man who drafted the pamphlet and the invitation, and wrote a letter to him saying, I'd like to attend. Can you please send me a letter of invitation sufficient that I can get a visa to go to Japan? He didn't have a visa, didn't have a passport. And he got a letter back saying yes. I'll show you the letter shortly, the yes letter, the invitation letter. So he's now meditating on, this is our founder Acharya. There's a rule, very simple rule for public speaking. It says, know thy audience. So he considered the audience, and his consideration was that people from the Far East, they have a tendency to learn lessons of life from scenes of nature, which is true. And so thinking of that, at least that type, then he began considering what is it within Srimad Bhagavatam that can help the people from the Far East appreciate lessons of life from Srimad Bhagavatam, from scenes of nature. So it was really easy. He selected chapter 20 of Canto 10, Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 20 comes right after chapter 19. And chapter 19 is the summer, and what comes right after summer is the rainy season and then the autumn season. And largely, that's what chapter 20 is. It's scenes of nature. So Prabhupada took the theme of scenes of nature, and through the medium, he began writing a letter and to the sponsor, and here's the letter he got back. Here's the letter he wrote. This was all found in a trunk, along with the manuscript that never got published during Prabhupada's time. Here's the letter. Think about it. He's a new sannyasi, and he's got a world vision, and he has no money, no followers, and no means to do anything. I wish to impress the public delegates who would internationally join the Conference for Culture and Human Spirit in Japan about the necessity of an international movement. Check it out. He's very clear, very explicit. He's not shy. Towards this unifying purpose, this is Lilamrita. His vision was that the cooperation of all the enlightened people of the world would be channeled, although there was no international movement at that stage. Kindly, therefore, do the needful immediately and give me a chance to speak to the enlightened people of the world the message of human culture from the Vedic literature. I am sure that such news will change the angle of vision of the world's activities. This is our founder Acharya. He's interested in changing the angle of vision of the world's activities. On your mark, it said, change the angle of vision of the world's activities. This is inside coming out. Well, the gentleman that received the letter was very kind, and he sent the following letter. There's his name at the bottom, essentially saying, this will get you a visa to come to Japan. Thank you for your willingness to come. And I'll take care of your lodging and boarding once you get here. But he didn't volunteer to take care of his airfare. There's a lot of people in the back, so those of you towards the front, do the needful. Thank you very much. So there you see on the screen, this was in that trunk, along with other documents, including the unpublished manuscript. So he now has this invitation letter. Remember, it started in January. The event is in May. So what did Prabhupada do? In the early parts of 1961, he composed a 20,000 word literature. The painting wasn't there, it came later. And he envisioned 50, he called them chapters, but it's not exactly, he didn't cut and paste the verses of the Bhagavatam because he's writing for a particular audience. He's taking scenes of nature, using that as the text, and then some commentary. He doesn't call it commentary, but it's an explanation of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and the lessons of life through scenes of nature, rainy season, autumn season. I mean, pausing because, close your eyes and imagine you're going to be a world acharya already. It's just time is separating. And what's your thought process? And this is our founder, Acharya. He was very clear what his mission was, how it's going to happen. Whatever Krishna provides, that's how it's going to happen. So this was, he saw as an opportunity to start it. So he wrote the book. And being Prabhupada, he had a vision of how the book could then be made into illustrations. So he requested the organizer to make the illustrations. He very kindly sent him 50 descriptions of the illustrations he wanted and asked the organizer to find a local artist that had a certain style of art that people would appreciate in Japan, and here's the illustrations. The illustrations weren't made. He asked that once the book was completed, he asked him to publish the book. The book wasn't published. And he then went here and there looking for airfare to get to Japan. We'll see shortly. So 50 commentaries with 50 illustrations. Please find the artist. Please publish the book. But as you see in the illustration, there is too many obstacles. It just didn't happen. The lodging was there, but the travel expense he didn't have. 3,500 rupees. He didn't have it. So what did he do? He went to people with the encouragement that the culture the cultural heritage of India is the wealth of India. Let us make it available to other parts of the world. I'm a renounced person representing our culture. Please make all the arrangements so that I can travel. And he appealed to money from many different people, different government officers, like Ministry of Scientific Research and Cultural Affairs. No good. Vice President of India, Dr. Radhakrishna, who wrote a commentary on Bhagavad Gita. No good. Potential donors, because he had gone to Bombay and Delhi. No good. 3,500 rupees. The Japanese gentleman who gave him the invitation letter. No good. No money. He got a vision. He's got a book. He's got a plan for the pictures. Didn't happen. So how would you feel if something like that was your experience? Prabhupada was disappointed but not discouraged. He found a way to have at least some of the writings published. They were published in a publication book by Aurobindo Ashram in South India, and their publication covered some of what Prabhupada had written. Part 1 and 2 is how it's identified with Prabhupada's name. The book didn't get published. The rest of the story of what happened with Srila Prabhupada was he didn't go to Japan, he went to America. But the book, the manuscript, was in a trunk. And many, many years later, after Prabhupada's departure from this world, they found many interesting things in that trunk. I know one of the things they found in that trunk was Prabhupada, during Gandhi Memorial, the time of his demise, he was asked to give a speech. So he wrote a speech, because it's a common thing. You deliver a paper, you write something. And he said in this document, long thing, but the way to honor a great personality is not name a street after them, or name a building after them, or build a statue of them. The way to honor a great person is to establish a community where the teachings of that person are lived by the people in that community. And since Gandhi was a great a proponent of Gita, he called the place Gita Nagari. Sound familiar? Later, when that document was found, what was called the New York Farm, Prabhupada personally named it, during his lifetime, he named it Gita Nagari, and then later the document was found, the Gita Nagari village. So that document now in ISKCON became known as the Gita Nagari prophecy. It's kind of like their manifesto, the Gita Nagari manifesto, because Prabhupada wrote it, what he was envisioning. So in that trunk were many, many other very interesting things, and one of the interesting things they found was the manuscript, the unpublished manuscript, because Prabhupada didn't have the money to publish it. And so once they found this manuscript and they understood what the purpose of a manuscript was, they gave it to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. If you want to get something done, give it to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, right? And not only that, by this time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was GBC in China and making his headquarters in Hong Kong. Just this morning, I was listening to a discussion with Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and Drishtadyumna Maharaj, and they're talking about establishing Krishna consciousness in mainland China with Hong Kong as their base. So that was already going on during Prabhupada's time. See, he was in charge of the China BBT as well as the China mission. And sure enough, he got the job done. He found an artist. Here's a photograph of this artist. She was a celebrity, kind of elderly, but particularly skilled in a particular style. You'll see something about that style tomorrow morning. But it's a Gongbi style of painting. And Giridhari Swami told me recently that she, once a month, came to Hong Kong. She showed Prabhupada the paintings as far as they had progressed there, because there were 50 of them. So he was the art director. Prabhupada was the one who determined what the painting should look like, and she was the artist. So it was a good team. And refined and refined and refined, and finally the paintings were done according to Tamal Krishna Maharaj's liking. And in Chinese instead of in English, the book was published. Instead of Japanese, the book was published. And then later it was translated into other languages and it's, of course, published in English. And it's available, probably for those of you that are here, I'm sure there's copies you can purchase if you haven't already. It's available online. You can do it that way too. There's many different cover paintings. Here's one. Here's another. Been through many iterations. Many people I've found when I started speaking on this topic, oh, I have a copy of that book, but I never read it. So hopefully some people will read it. Here's a little illustration published in ISKCON News 2017. There's a mall somewhere in Brazil, a shopping center, and they made blow-up pictures of the artwork and made a display in the mall to promote the book. And it was very successful. And there's some of the artwork, and there's one of the blow-up posters explaining the content of the book. And humbly sitting in the back side of the temple room is Hanumat Preshik Swami, and he has 53 times he's presented a bilingual movie. He has a bilingual publication. He wants to give me a copy before too long. And if you have some questions about what they're doing in South America, he's seated right over there in the corner next to the Charnamrita bowl, and you can ask him, hey, what's going on in South America with this book? He is very enthusiastic. Look behind him. You see a blow up of one of the posters. So when he heard that I was doing this, he wanted to come and be present and be a participant. So he's going to be a participant in this weekend's event. finally, Prabhupada, very nice portrait of Prabhupada. Even today, the book that he didn't get published is now being read. Recently, when I discovered this book and in its history, um, I wanted to present it in China. Now, tomorrow morning, I'm going to bring the book printed in Chinese. It's like a big color book, but they were out of print. They're out of print in China. So I asked the China BBT, can you make a reprint? There's an ISBN, so that means it's legal to reprint it. They reprinted 2,000 copies, and before the book was available, it was all sold out because I was, beating the drum and blaring the horn, and so we had a whole seminar on Light of the Bhagavad for the Chinese devotees. In this way, in short, Prabhupada is living on through his writing because, as he wrote or said, I shall never die, I shall live forever in my books. And another was, the more you distribute books, history will change. Something very similar, this language is very similar to what he wrote to the organizers of this event, cultivation of the human spirit, which could mean practically anything. Here's our last slide for this evening. Although he wanted to go to Japan even before coming to the USA, and although he wrote the book Light of the Bhagavad especially to preach the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam in Japan, Krishna had a different plan for Srila Prabhupada, sending him first to the USA. So eventually he did go to Japan. But, there's our plan and there's Krishna's plan, and Krishna wins. Always. But we have to remain determined. We have to have a plan, but we also have to be flexible to what is Krishna's plan. And there's many, many details because of the time. I'm not going into all those details, but Lilamrita describes the tests and the tribulations that Prabhupada went through during those years that he had no followers, he had no money, he had a vision. He had a mandate and a vision. And the vision was also modifying, like this League of Devotees became ISKCON. The name changed, the details changed, but the vision was the same. And he was a strict follower of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, step by step by step. So two more things. Because the book was intended for an Oriental audience, in addition to the art itself having an Oriental flavor by design, but there's also going to be some information connected to the Orient, China and Japan, because that's the flavor and the spirit of this. So be prepared. And one other thing I'd like to comment, and that is, so that's okay. So part of what we're going to be doing, a significant part of what we're going to be doing, for those of you that come for a number of sessions, is we're going to have, it's called it's a common educational tool, breakout groups. Breakout groups' purpose is taking information and bringing it inside, integrating, and then applying, not just information, information, information. So those of you that have good memories, please bring your good memory with you in the next few sessions. And if you don't have a good memory like me, it might be good to take notes, because in the breakout session, there's going to be testing your memory segment. and then there's going to be the application segment. And all of this breakout group thing was designed by people that professionally teach. I didn't design it. But I mean, I'm encouraging you. The purpose of all of this, in addition to just with awe appreciating the magnificence and the gift of writing, the masterful gift of writing of our founder Acharya, it's from the very get-go. The second book that he wrote, it's masterful. He tells the whole Srimad Bhagavatam in a little skinny book through scenes of nature. It's really amazing. But there's application and integration. So bring your good memory or bring a notebook or both, and please be present for the breakout sessions, because that's where you take and bring it inside and then hopefully also apply it in your life. Lessons of Srimad Bhagavatam from our founder Acharya, written in one of the earliest stages of his writing. And thank you all for coming. It's nice to be with all of you. Hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow. And tomorrow morning is a special treat. Don't miss tomorrow morning's special treat. Tomorrow morning includes a recorded video, a dramatic reading of the rainy season in Vrindavan. It's very, very nice. I'll have the opportunity, hopefully, Sunday evening for those that don't come to the retreat or seminar. They'll see it also. So if you miss it tomorrow morning, you can see it then. But it's very nice, very, very pleasing, very sweet. So try to come if you can tomorrow morning. So let's see if there's some discussion or questions. We have a portable microphone. If you just raise your hand, someone will bring you the portable microphone.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. I have a quick comment. How did he do it? It's like asking me to go and write a book about Northern Macedonia. I've never seen Northern Macedonia. I've never imagined Northern Macedonia. It is incredible that anybody blindly could honestly, obviously with guidance from Krishna, but could really be able to write a volume that is so specific to that market, to that people.
Oh,
And be able to convey it with such exactitude.
well, he's empowered. Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe Tara Pravartana, in the language of Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was empowered. He wasn't just, a nice man. He wasn't just a literary man. He was empowered. And read the book and participate in this discussion. And you'll see it's the Bhagavatam in that little skinny thing that's in your hand. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's masterful. I get really excited. You're prompting me to get excited early, but when we start getting into this, I'm going to say it many times. Huh? Oh, you just, little by little and savor it. That's it for tomorrow? Well, we're going to cover tomorrow we'll cover the first 5 chapters. The morning is the, the rainy season. And in the evening, the first 5 chapters. Or afternoon, I guess, afternoon. 2:30 to 4. Because tomorrow the temple has the Thanksgiving hoopla, nice festival for the congregation. That's in between. Your enthusiasm is inspiring me. So please come and continue to inspire me. Yes, Shamsundar.
And you so
Jansi. Oh, right away, the first page?
Yeah, before Jhansi.
At the bottom. It's 7:30. Maybe it's time to end. And is there a plan to have Damodarastaka this evening? You don't know. Why not? Still the Damodar month. What's that? Well, even if we're not ending early, we can have Damodarastaka.
Yes.
So somebody likes to sing? You
Uh,
like to sing? You gonna sing? Wait a minute.
there is a
Okay,
science.
you make the arrangement.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone get ready. There's the Yasoda Damodar, and we'll have lamps in the spiffy.
Uh, just a few announcements while we are setting up the kirtan. Um, for tomorrow morning, the program here in the temple room will start with the Mangala Arati at 4:30 in the morning. So those who are visiting from outside and also from Houston area, you can join the Mangala Arati at